Last winter, a driver named Marcus posted on a trucking forum that he'd just spent $11,000 on hotel rooms in a single year. He was driving a Peterbilt 579 with a full sleeper berth. Had everything he needed to stay comfortable. He just didn't know how to use it. But a guy 2 comments down said he'd been sleeping in his cab through Minnesota winters for 6 years straight, and his entire warmth setup cost him less than $10. Same roads, same cold, but a completely different experience. And the difference came down to the setup. That's what we're breaking down today. Every piece of this system is something you can put together tonight. So why do truck cabs get so brutally cold in the first place? You'd think a modern sleeper cab with insulation and curtains would hold heat pretty well. But the reality is, a semi-truck cab is basically a steel box sitting on top of a steel frame, surrounded by glass windows on 3 sides. And steel is one of the best conductors of cold on the planet. It literally pulls the warmth right out of the air inside your cab and dumps it into the freezing atmosphere outside. Your windows are even worse. Glass is a thermal highway. A single pane of truck glass loses heat roughly 15 times faster than an insulated wall. So picture this. You're parked at a rest stop in Ohio in January. The wind is ripping across that lot at 30 miles an hour, and every single window in your cab is basically an open door inviting the cold inside. The wind chill effect on an exposed rig can make a 20-degree night feel like -10. Your cab heater fights this for a while, but the second you shut it off to save fuel, the temperature inside drops fast. Within 2 hours, that sleeper berth feels like a meat locker. And that's the trap most drivers fall into. They idle all night burning diesel, or they spend $80 to $150 on a hotel room, or they pile on blankets that end up damp by morning. But the actual fix is dirt cheap, and it starts with understanding one simple concept. You don't need to heat the whole cab. You just need to stop losing the heat your body already produces. The first piece of this setup is what I call the window barrier method. Head to any hardware store and pick up a roll of Reflectix, which is that silver reflective bubble wrap insulation you've probably walked past 100 times. A small roll costs about $2 to $3 and gives you enough material to cover every window in your cab. Cut a piece to fit each window and just press it into the frame. It stays in place on its own because of the slight curve of the glass. Your windshield is the biggest offender since it's the largest piece of glass in the cab, so make sure you cover that one first. If you've got a passenger side window that doesn't fit perfectly, just cut the Reflectix a little oversized and wedge it in. It doesn't need to look pretty, it just needs to create a seal. What this does is create a dead airspace between the cold glass and your cabin air. That dead air acts as insulation, and the reflective surface bounces radiant heat back into the cab instead of letting it bleed through the glass. Drivers who do this consistently report their cab temperature stays 10 to 15 degrees warmer overnight compared to bare windows. And we're talking about a $2 fix that takes 10 minutes to set up. If you can't find Reflectix, cheap foam board insulation from the dollar store works almost as well. One thing people don't realize about the window covers is that they also black out the cab completely. Truck stop parking lots have brutal overhead lighting, and passing headlights sweep through uncovered windows all night. So the Reflectix does double duty. It keeps the cold out and the light out. Better insulation and better sleep quality from the same $2 piece of material. But covering your windows is step 1, not the whole system. The second piece is something long-haul veterans have been doing for decades, and it's the cab curtain trick. Take a heavy blanket, a cheap moving blanket, or even a thick bed sheet, and hang it right behind the driver and passenger seats, creating a wall between the cab area and the sleeper berth. You can use bungee cords, clip hooks, or just drape it over the headrests. The goal is to shrink the total air volume you need to keep warm. Think about it this way. Your full cab interior might be 150 cubic feet of air, but the sleeper berth area behind that curtain is maybe 40 to 50 cubic feet. That's less than a third of the space. And less space means less air to warm, which means your body heat alone can raise the temperature of that small pocket significantly. A thick moving blanket from a thrift store costs $1 to $3, And this single trick is the difference between feeling cold air circulate from the windshield all the way back to your pillow and sleeping in a tight, warm cocoon that your own body keeps heated. The curtain also blocks any drafts that sneak through the dashboard vents and door seals. Even when your windows are covered, the front cab area has more air leaks than the sleeper section. Doors, pedal openings, and steering column gaps all let tiny streams of cold air into the cab. The curtain keeps that cold air trapped in the front where it doesn't matter, and your warm air stays in the back where you're sleeping. Now here's something that catches new drivers off guard. Everyone thinks about cold air coming in from the sides and the windows, but the real sneak attack happens from below. Your mattress sits on a platform, and that platform sits on steel framing that's connected directly to the outside of the truck. Cold conducts straight up through that metal, through the platform, through your mattress, and into your body while you sleep. You wake up with a cold back and sore joints and you blame the mattress, but really it's the cold seeping up from underneath. The fix is stupid simple. Grab a cheap foam yoga mat from the dollar store for about $1. Lay it under your sleeping bag or blankets as a barrier between you and the mattress surface. That thin layer of closed-cell foam blocks conductive heat loss from below, and the difference is immediately noticeable. Your first night sleeping on even a thin foam barrier versus directly on the mattress will feel like a completely different bed. If you're really pinching pennies, flattened cardboard works too. It's not as comfortable, but cardboard is actually a surprisingly decent insulator. Delivery drivers and people living in their cars have known this trick for years. The next piece of this setup is something that costs literally $0, but it makes a bigger difference than anything else on this list. Your clothing base layer. Here's what happens. A driver finishes his shift, kicks off his boots, keeps on whatever jeans and t-shirt he was wearing all day, and climbs into bed. And then he wonders why he's cold. The problem is that cotton holds moisture. You've been sweating in that shirt all day, even if you don't feel it, and damp fabric against your skin pulls heat away from your body at an alarming rate. Wet fabric transfers heat away from you roughly 25 times faster than dry air. So sleeping in your day clothes is basically wrapping yourself in a cold, damp towel. And the colder it gets outside, the worse it gets, because that moisture keeps wicking your body heat away all night long. By 3 in the morning, you're shivering and you have no idea why, because you've got blankets piled on top of you. But all those blankets on top don't matter when the layer against your skin is working against you. The fix is to change into a dry base layer before bed. A synthetic long-sleeve shirt and synthetic pants, or merino wool if you have it. These fabrics wick moisture away from your skin and trap warm air against your body. You can find synthetic base layers at Walmart for $3 to $5 per piece. One set dedicated to sleeping makes a massive difference. And don't sleep in the socks you drove in. Grab a dry pair. Your feet lose heat fast because the blood vessels are close to the surface, and damp socks accelerate that process. Your head and neck are exposed skin with a lot of blood flow close to the surface, so covering them makes a noticeable difference too. A cheap fleece neck gaiter pulled up over your ears while you sleep sounds ridiculous, but it works. The drivers who look silly are the ones staying warm. Now, this next piece is something I only learned about recently, and it might be the single most effective warmth hack per dollar spent. We've been talking about blocking cold and shrinking your heat zone. But there's another approach entirely, and it's about reflecting the heat your body naturally generates back towards you instead of letting it escape into the air. Emergency thermal bivvies have been used by search and rescue teams, military personnel, and wilderness survival instructors for years. The concept is simple. You climb inside what's essentially a body-sized bag with an aluminized lining, and that lining reflects about 90% of your infrared body heat straight back to you. You become your own furnace. You don't need batteries, fuel, or electricity, just physics. If you're finding this useful, hit subscribe. We cover trucker lifestyle and road tips every week, and there's a lot more coming. A lot of drivers I've talked to have started keeping something called a TerraShell in their cab for exactly this reason. It's one of these thermal bivvies, but it's built a lot tougher than those cheap foil blankets you find at the gas station that rip apart the second you look at them wrong. The material is thicker, it's windproof and water resistant, and the whole thing packs down to about the size of your fist. Weighs about 4 ounces. You can literally toss it in your glove box and forget about it until you need it. The way drivers use it is they either sleep inside it directly on cold nights, or they layer it between their blanket and sleeping bag as a heat reflector. Either way, the effect is the same. Your body heat stays trapped close to you instead of dissipating into the cab air. One driver on Truckers Report said he tested it during a breakdown in South Dakota in February, engine off, -8 degrees outside, and he stayed warm enough to actually sleep for 5 hours. That's wild when you think about it. You can find TerraShell in the description if you want to grab one. They run under $20, which is still budget territory when you consider what you're getting. But even without that specific product, the principle is what matters. Reflect your body heat instead of trying to generate new heat. That's the key insight that separates drivers who stay warm from drivers who stay broke. Alright, so we've covered insulation, space reduction, floor barriers, base layers, and thermal reflection. But you can have every piece of this setup in place and still wake up freezing if you don't start the night correctly. The pre-sleep routine is what activates the whole system. About 15 to 20 minutes before you plan to sleep, turn your cab heater on and let it run. You're not trying to keep it running all night. You're preheating the air inside your insulated, curtained-off sleeper space. Think of it like preheating an oven. You get the space warm, then you seal it up and climb in. Your insulated windows and curtain barrier will hold that warm air much longer than you'd expect, especially in a small space. You'll be shocked at how long 40 to 50 cubic feet of preheated air stays warm when it's sealed off from the rest of the cab. We're talking 3 to 4 hours before you notice any real temperature drop. While the heater's running, eat something. Not a full meal, but a snack. Your body generates heat through digestion, so a handful of nuts, some peanut butter crackers, or even a warm cup of soup gives your internal furnace fuel to burn through the night. This isn't bro science. Mountaineers and cold weather campers have used this technique for decades. They call it stoking the fire, and it measurably increases your core body temperature during sleep. If you really want to go the extra mile, do 30 seconds of jumping jacks or push-ups right before you get into bed. Sounds weird in a truck cab, but even a quick burst of exercise raises your core temperature, and that elevated warmth carries into the first hour of sleep, which is when the cold usually hits the hardest. By the time your body temperature naturally dips, the insulation system is doing its job. One more trick that veteran drivers swear by. Fill a water bottle with hot water from a truck stop, wrap it in a sock so it doesn't burn you, and toss it into your sleeping area about 10 minutes before you climb in. It pre-warms the fabric and creates a heat source that lasts 2 to 3 hours. Costs you nothing, and your feet will thank you. Now there's one mistake that ruins even the best warmth setup, and it catches new drivers every single time. Condensation. When you seal your cab up tight with insulated windows and curtains, you create a nearly airtight space. You're breathing all night, releasing moisture with every exhale. That moisture has nowhere to go, so it condenses on the coldest surfaces in the cab, which are usually your windows and the metal walls. By morning, everything is damp. Your blankets feel heavy, your clothes are clammy, and damp means cold. The fix is counterintuitive. Crack a window. Not much. We're talking about a 1/4-inch opening on one window, just enough to let moisture escape without creating a noticeable draft. If your sleeper has a roof vent, open it just a sliver. The roof vent is actually the better option because warm, moist air rises, so it escapes naturally through the top without pulling cold air in at bed level. If it's raining, angle the vent so water doesn't drip in, or crack a side window on the leeward side where rain isn't hitting directly. The tiny amount of cold air that enters is nothing compared to the heat you lose when all your bedding gets soaked with condensation overnight. This is the #1 mistake that makes drivers abandon cab sleeping entirely because they think the cab is just too cold when really, their moisture management is what's failing them. So let's break down the actual cost of this entire system. A small piece of Reflectix or dollar store foam board for the windows runs about $2. A thrift store moving blanket for the cab curtain is another $2. A dollar store foam yoga mat for under your bedding is $1. Dry base layer shirt and pants from a clearance rack will set you back $3 to $4. A hot water bottle from the truck stop is free. total cost comes to $8 to $9, with a dollar or two to spare. Compare that to what a truck driver spends on hotel rooms, $80 to $150 per night depending on location. But the money is only half the problem. Say you pull into a truck stop at 9 p.m. after a long haul through Wisconsin. You're tired, you're cold, and a hotel room sounds amazing, but the nearest one is a 15-minute drive from the truck stop. So you either unhook the trailer and bobtail over, or you try to find parking for the whole rig somewhere near the hotel, which is its own headache. You check in, you sleep, and then your alarm goes off at 5 a.m. because your load needs to move. Now you're driving back to the truck in the freezing dark, burning another 15 minutes. Over a month of even 10 hotel stays, that's $800 to $1,500 gone, plus 5 hours of your life burned just commuting to and from a bed. In a year, you're looking at Marcus numbers. Over $10,000. Up in smoke because nobody taught you how a $2 roll of Reflectix works. And honestly, this setup doesn't just match a hotel bed. A lot of drivers say it's actually better. In a hotel, you're dealing with thin sheets, a heater you can't control, random noise from hallways, and a checkout time that doesn't care about your schedule. In your cab, with this system dialed in, you've got a dark, quiet, warm space. That's exactly the temperature you want, right behind the seat of your truck, ready whenever you are. The real secret is that warmth in a truck cab is about understanding how heat works and using the cheapest possible materials to work with physics instead of against it. Insulate the windows to stop radiant heat loss. Shrink the space with a curtain to reduce the volume you need to warm. Block conductive cold from below with a foam layer. Change into dry clothes so moisture doesn't steal your warmth. Reflect your own body heat back towards you with a thermal barrier. Preheat the space and your body before you sleep, and manage moisture so your setup stays dry through the night. Every piece of this system reinforces the others. Skip one, and the whole thing works less. Use them all together, and you've got a sleep setup that handles single-digit temperatures without idling, without a hotel, and without spending more than the cost of a large coffee. That's the $10 cab setup. If you want to see how drivers are handling summer heat in the cab without running the AC all night, that video is on screen right now. Click it.